Hey everyone, this is Carbonite, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 16 Shiranui list. My teammate Ryuki did actually top with this list, so let's go ahead and get into it. So, as Shiranui stands in the meta, I think that it's definitely not as dominant as it used to be. Just with the fact that the format has gotten very fast, and obviously being a stride deck, that's not the greatest thing when you have to wait till turn 3 or 4 in order to actually functionally do like your plays. But honestly, it is still a very strong deck, even after the hits. So definitely meta viable. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into the deck profile. All right, so as always, we're gonna be starting off with the ride deck. You do actually have to play the Shiranui ride line as per, rules and regulations. So obviously just going over it, standard D starter of Midoi. I forget his name, Seizui, lets you draw a card, gets your crest, whatever. And then we have, of course, the Genkai, who does actually have a skill that I don't remember.
So when it's water pumped by a great deal of Demon Stealth, Dragon, Shiranui, and his card name, you may call this card to the rear guard. If you call a card, soul charge 1, and choose up to one of your opponent's card from the drop zone and call it to rear guard. And then his other skill is, when a unit dominated by you attacks, I could counterblast 1 and give it 10k for the end of the battle, and himself gets a boost.
For that second skill, how often would you say that we actually use that skill?
I think I played this twice every game. I've been including the top cut matches, due to the fact that I don't really play counterblast other than my Vanguard ability and my other grade 2 skill.
All right, and so for, of course, our classic Shiranui, when you straighten over, you dominate something, give it 4k, and then it has another skill that does not matter for anything. So let's go ahead and move into the main deck. So starting off with actually a couple of grade 4s, we've got 2 Varina Esperidia. So the only effect that's actually relevant is that when your Vanguard attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 to restand it. It doesn't get any power because you're not going to be playing any Overdress, so it just functionally is another restander. So how are we feeling about this Expecta and at this ratio?
I'm currently playing a 2 for only a matchup for against people who use like cards like Ladder, or it's my second backup in case I don't have my other restanding units. And also it's a grade 4, so I can use it as a cost for my strikes.
Alright, so moving on into the grade 3s, we do just play 2 copies of the Shiranui in the main deck, because you do need to discard this in order to actually go into the Mukuro. How often do you say we go into Mukuro in this deck?
I usually go every game on my second stride, because I usually draw it or I usually search out by effects.
Alright, continuing on with grade 3s. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Bjorvis. He is the Stride Fodder Dragon that we got in set 13. So basically, when he is discarded to ride to grade 3 or as a stride cost to get a draw card, which is probably the most relevant effect. But he does also affect, if you ever bother to call him, you can, what does he do? Choose an opponent's rear guard and retire it, and then he gets an extra 5k. Does that effect ever come up?
Yes, I do. So, in case where I don't lose Shiranui for the early game, I usually call it.
Technically, if you reveal a grade 4, which of course we do actually play one, you can use it as a 15k shield, but I feel for most of the time we're just using it as stride fodder. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but then there's some games where if I go against like decks that's like Shodoji or any other rush decks, I usually use it as a shield. In case I have like other grade 3s in my hand, I could use that as a stride cost. But most cases, thankfully, I didn't go against like many rush decks, but mostly slow decks, so I didn't really need to have a chance of using it to guard.
And then for our last grade 3, we are playing the 1 copy of Angel Ladder here. So why did we decide to choose Angel Ladder over any other Regalia's piece?
So the reason I'm using Ladder is like, in case of a mirror match or Blackmire or like Shodoji where they remove my board, is for me to have more shield value on my interceptors, because there's some games where I use them as an interceptor for defensive. And also, it gives me a card and gives extra card in my soul, so I can use skills like Furai, Sekie, or Mukuro.
Right, so moving on into the grade 2s, we are going to be starting off with 4 copies of the Energy Cycler. So of course, this is your typical Energy Cycler. It does have a Persona Ride skill, which obviously you cannot use, but the main effect is that when you discard it to ride 2 from your ride deck, or you guard with it from hand, you can CB1 or EB3 in order to draw a card. So how are we feeling with the Energy Cycler at 4 copies?
I actually like playing at 4 copies due to the fact that I could draw extra card for going second if I win the dice roll. And also, I actually like it use it during like Show Doji matchup, where it's just only 5k guard. I could just guard with Fall Heart and Edge Blast or Cannon Blast to draw a card. Fall Heart is a good card in general for strike decks.
Alright, so moving on, we do have 3 copies of Ford. Now, Ford is the Dark States Dragon Empire Dual Nation. When he's placed on rear from hand, you may soul charge one mandatorily, and he gets another 5k. Then you can CB one in order to either choose a grade 2 or greater card and retire it, or you can choose a grade 2 or less card from your soul and call it to rear. So, tell us a little bit more about Ford.
So I play this card mostly for early game purposes, and also to get out extra cards in the soul and maybe call Shiranui or call the grade 1 Cycle Dragons for early push. And also, I actually like it because there's some matchup where I had to want to retire cards from opponent's side, such as Show Doji, their grade 2 games, because the grade 2s usually remove my own stuff from the bind zone, which I don't really want to.
Alright, so moving on, we do have, of course, what Shiranui deck would be incomplete without 4 copies of a Fudai. It's so good that we're always going to be able to play this at 4 copies, right? But anyways, this does have the Kant skill where however many times you've dominated, he gets 5k for each. And then, of course, on GB1, when your Vanguard attacks, if you dominated something this turn, you can Soul Blast 1 when your Vanguard attacks in order to restand him. So he is one of our many restanders in the deck. So anything to add about Fudai?
Not really. It's just a Fudai. It's just a good card. It's just if you have double Fudai in your first strike turn, it ruins your opponent's day. They're forced to guard 15k for no reason. They hit defensive.
Fudai is Fudai. And then, of course, finishing off the grade 2 unit cards, we do have 2 extra copies of Senkei, who basically effectively does the same thing when your Vanguard attacks. You can Soul Blast 1 to restand him, but if you have 2 or more face-up cards in your G-Zone, you do get an extra 10k there. So anything else for our Senkei?
I mean, this Senkei is just Fudai at home. It doesn't do much till late game. I usually use this as a discard for right, and so if I don't draw Fall Heart. And usually, he's usually for my grade 2 gaming also against like mirror match or strike deck set if my opponent wants to do grade 2 gaming me.
And for our last grade 2, we do actually have a little bit of an interesting tech pick here. We've got the Defensing Roar. So this is a blitz order. When you play it, you choose one of your Gardens without Sentinel. It gets that when it's retired from Garden Circle, you add it back to your hand and an additional 10k shield. So why are we being cheeky and playing the one of Defensing Roar?
So the way I play this card is usually when I guard with Fall Heart or Intercept with Ford. I could use this to target one of them to bounce it back to my hand so I can reuse it for next turn. Or I could, if I do an over trigger in my hand, I could play it and then use this so I could bounce an over trigger for like big swings like Zorga, Blackmire, because it usually goes well against them. Also, I could use this to combo off the grade 3 dragons that gains 50k if I have reveal grade 4. So that way I could bounce it and I could use it as a cost for striding.
Alright, so moving on into the grade 1s, we are playing 3 copies of the Discard Dragon for Dragon Empire. So this one doesn't have any extra effect, but if you are the same grade as your opponent or less, then it gets another 5k instead of the 2k. And then of course it has a standard Discard Dragon effect, EB3, remove from either rearguard or drop zone in order to add the card you discarded back. So, any thoughts on our Discard Dragon?
Ever since the festival, I think the Shiranui has been largely a lot better deck due to the fact that you have more early game pressure. And also, I actually like this card as a unit, as my grade 2 game against a Meteor or a Strike deck set, due to the fact they just get 5k for no reason. And also, it fixes my hand multiple times by discarding a grade 3 and then use EB3 to bounce it back to my hand, so I can restride for the turn.
Basically just like a free plus when you discard the, whatever his name, the Stride Fodder Dragon to write to grade 3, and then you can just add it back, discard it again, and draw 2 cards.
Also, this card is amazing, because if I soul charge it by using the Ford, I could bring it back and get additional 5k.
Alright, so moving on, we do have the 4 copies of the Shiranui. So Shiranui is very much like a Cell Gown. When it boosts, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, or you played an order this turn, it gets another 5k. Then at the end of the battle, you can put it into Soul and draw a card. So we already talked a little bit about how good Shiranui is, but is there anything else you want to add?
Also, Shiranui is amazing in grade 1 in general, where I could call with Furai and the Shiranui combo, Instead of hitting for 25 with Furai by himself, I could just swing with the Shiranui for 38k.
Okay, and finishing off the grade ones, we are playing 2 copies of the Stride Fodder grade 1. So same thing, you can pitch it as a grade 3 for the cost of Stride, or you can discard it in order to search out the Shiranui Oboro. So how are you feeling about this ratio?
2 is fine usually because I only play 2 Shiranui in the main deck. And also I usually use this to either, as they call it, a unit for pushing, or I use it to discard to filter out my deck, take out the non-shield cards out of my deck so I can hit more triggers in general.
Alright, so just moving on to the basic stuff, we do have, of course, your 4 PGs. Kind of troll playing the Sparkle Rejector instead of the one that actually came with it, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, our trigger lineup going to be pretty standard. We've got 4, 8 crits. And then, of course, we do have 3 fronts, right? And then, of course, just have 4 heals and Overture. Playing purple, any reason?
Well, this actually did happen at Regional, where I used Mukuro, and I already have a Furai on my right side, but my auto throw was on the damage, so when I hit the purple to do the Mukuro scale to drive check, I hit it, I add a Furai to my hand, and I caught it, and gave it 1 million, and it just won me the game.
Alright, so just finishing up with the G-Zone. I mean, it's pretty standard, just playing the 4 Magen Tembu. Of course, this is the Act CB1, dominate something, and then retire it at the end of the battle. And then, of course, you just play your 4 copies of Mukuro, who is, you have to discard the Persona in order to ride into it. And then you just Soul Blast 1 on GB2, stand a rearguard, attack the Vanguard with it, and then attack the Vanguard with the rearguard with the Vanguard. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and finish off with a quick test hand. So exactly what are we looking for in our opener here?
So what I usually look for is at least one of the grade 3, especially for this or Spiradia. Usually at least one Shiranui and one of the Ford, the dual nation card, of course. And sometimes it depends if I go first or second. If I want to go second, I usually want to draw the Storm Dragons. So I could do the early push with the Shiranui. So with this hand, I will mulligan back my triggers and my Shiranui because I don't really need this early game. So I'll usually return these 3. And what I'll be drawing is PG, Fall Hard, and Ford.
So in this situation, we'll go ahead and just go second so that we can see exactly how broken this deck can be when it does actually go how it wants to. So our opponent's going to go ahead and take their turn, and we're going to go ahead and draw for turn.
Draw for turn.
And we're going to go ahead and discard to ride up.
I'll discard Fall Hard, ride up. And I go to get my energy generator, charge 3, get the crest. So I draw 1 first from the crest. I draw another one for going second. And I'll energy blast 3 to draw another one. So I'll draw 3 cards. So what I'll do is I'll call Shiranui, just a swing. Swing for 16. Shiranui scale is really good early game because normally your opponent does not have more than 2 rear guards. So I usually swing for 21 and then I drive check it. And especially ladder is good to drive check early. That way, if I have a extra Shiranuis in my hand, while my opponents have more than 2 rear guards, I could just draw and activate ladder, and the Shiranui will proc scale regardless since I play order.
Okay, our opponent's gonna swing at us. What are we gonna do?
So usually if my opponent's Vanguard does have a booster, he swings, I usually guard with a non-effect triggers. So I'll guard with triggers. And usually my opponents will want to push against Shiranui because if they don't, I'll die. So I'll just take 1. And then my opponent's pass, so I draw 1 card for turn. And with the current hand I have, I usually discard Sekie because Sekie doesn't really do much early game, so I just discard to right. And at this point, if my opponents have rearguards have at least 1, I'll just count 4 just to push. Skill, I'll also charge 1. PG. Which is fine because usually PG doesn't do much since I already draw so many cards. So I have enough shield usually. So all I'll do is Cannon Blast 1. Call Shiranui. I usually call it over here, so I can hit bigger numbers. Because most likely my opponent's gonna guard for my Vanguard swing. So just so that I don't hit a trigger or anything like that. So now I'll just usually if my opponent has a front row rear guards and he has 1 in the back row, I usually swing at the rear guards. That way, if they don't guard it, he has 1 less rear guards, and I could proc Shiranui skill. So if he doesn't guard, then that's great. But if do guard, then whatever. Shiranui still exists. So I'll just draft check 1, PG, which is fine because that's extra shield in my hand. So if he does retire that's fine. Then I'll just go to Vanguard for 15 plus 8, 23 plus additional 5k from her skill. So it'll be 28. And then after that, I just put to like 2 soul and draw.
Alright, so now our opponent's gonna go. They're gonna swing at us 2 times.
So for my opponent's grade 3, depending on the deck, I usually take 2 damage. Unless it's a show doji, I try to take less damage. So I usually want to. So if it's like a show doji, I'll first see my first damage. Just like if it's a trigger, then it's easier for me to guard. If it's not, then I'll just take 1 more and guard the rest. So I'll just take 1 crit, which is good against show doji. But yeah, 1 trigger, and then my friend, I just guard for 2 pass, and that's it. And then I go to my next turn, stand, draw, and then I'll just discard the dragon to ride. Personally, I like to draw first and then use Genkai to skill to soul charge. So I draw 1, and I call this to here, and soul charge 1. Genkai skill, I usually call it the grade 2 or grade 3 at most. And then I'll strike for Magen Tenbu. And then I'll dominate and then go standby on the grade 3. After I dominate, they usually guard or they take it to see the defensive. Because if they get 1 defensive, then my dominant unit does not attack. Does not hit. Dragon Sky, I drop 1. Okay. And then I go to my turn. First, I'll do ladder to draw. Okay, and then I'll discard this to go to search for Shiranui. And then I put this in the back row to call Furai and Sekie. Yeah. And then Vanguard skill, can pass 1. Flip 1 I usually flip Mukuros. I usually swing a Furai first for 25. Because this is easy guard for them. And then I swing with Sekie. And usually they intercept or they just force themselves guard their 15k since they don't want to lose their 5k shield because usually those are their pieces. Unless they have cards like Energy Cyclers. And after that, I'll attack. And what I usually do for the Soul Blast cost is I usually either Soul Blast a non-Shenri card like PG, Order, or a Ride Line. So in this case, I'll usually Soul Blast 1 of each, these 2 for their both scales. And we send these 2. Then I'll go for triple drive. So first check, second check, third check. Yikes. And then I swing and then swing. And then I D-strike and I'll pass turn.
Alright, so that's gonna do it for the deck profile. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to my teammate Ryuki for being here, and congratulations on topping. But that's gonna do it for us. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.